Thank you for staying with Sharaad and I on Consider This. Joining us on the line now, we have Datuk Ambiga Sreenevasan, lawyer and human rights advocate. Ambiga, good evening. Thank you for coming on the show tonight. Now, can a legal challenge be mounted against what is happening, against the one-day single agenda Dewan Rakyat sitting?
Well, I don't see why not, to be honest. I suppose the Brexit case was mentioned. What happened in the UK, where there was a proroguing, which is slightly different from what's happening here. But I have some real issues about the letter that was issued by the Speaker in relation to the one-day sitting, which cuts out all other government business and all the rest of the agenda. Now, as you know, we have a Westminster system of government, and therefore we have three arms of government, which is the executive, the parliament, and the judiciary. And you are effectively crippling one key arm of the government, the parliament. So this is where the checks and balances are. But just moving quickly, because I know we don't have much time, it seems to me this sitting was just convened for the purposes of Article 55(1) of the Federal Constitution. But there are a few things that don't gel with this. And I'm looking at the Speaker's letter or statement. Now, if we look at Standing Order 12, because the standing orders are what govern the business of the House. If we look at Standing Order 12, it says that each sitting of the House shall begin at 10 a.m., continue till 1 p.m., and then 2:30 p.m. and continue till 5:30 p.m. And it is only with a motion in the House by a minister that those times can be changed. And of course, the Speaker can extend time. So the first thing they've done is to curtail the timing. So that, to me, offends Standing Order 12. Then you have Standing Order 14, which sets out the business of the House. And you can't change that. Only the House can change that. The government cannot change that. And I think the Speaker's letter actually refers to the pihak kerajaan memutuskan, which means the government has decided. They can't. It is a matter for the House to change. Otherwise, the business must follow Standing Order 14, and there's a long list there.
Now, Ambiga, in fact, can I interject at this point? We just spoke to VK Liu, the former law minister, who says that he doesn't feel that the Agong speech alone satisfies the constitutional requirement for this to be considered a sitting. Is that, and what's your opinion on this? We just spoken to him. Are we headed towards a constitutional crisis?
I'm not sure that I would call it a constitutional crisis, but I think there is a serious flaw in this sitting. And it is in the manner in which the agenda has been moved around and the timing has been moved around. It offends the standing orders, in my view. And I think that's where the problem lies, actually. I did hear that question that you asked about constitutional crisis, but it is a matter I think that can go to the court. And you see, the Speaker refers to Standing Order 11.2 and 15.2. 11.2 relates to the setting of the date for the whole session, which is the whole year, you know. And 15.2, which it talks about, also only relates to rearranging of government business. So they can only rearrange government business. They cannot touch any of the other motions that are before the House, because those motions were accepted by the Speaker. So these are the things, you know, that really need to be challenged and need to be looked at. And honestly, it is only by a motion in the House that you can change the order of business under Standing Order 14. Okay. It says there, unless the House otherwise directs.
Right. Ambiga, I want to get your thoughts on what you think are the opportunities that will be missed by essentially muting the Dewan Rakyat at this point in time.
Well, a lot of things. Let me tell you, they should be making legislation. In other countries, you've had specific legislation to address the COVID, the crisis, the public health crisis. They have come up with what they call special measures in many of the countries, which provide for situations like a moratorium on eviction of tenants, extending the scope of legislation that protects employees, allows them to take extra leave, increasing the threshold for bankruptcy and winding up. And I think winding up, they tried to do it by way of a Gazette notification. I'm not sure whether that will stand up in court. Then there are proposals to protect businesses, subsidizing of workers' salaries. For example, in Singapore, companies actually receive between 25% to 75% subsidy of workers' salaries, so that to ensure that businesses can continue and that workers don't get laid off. And then there are so many other possibilities, waiver of EPF, contributions, and then if you're looking at agreements, legal agreements, whether you can do away with stamp duty or reduce it or whatever it is. So there are a lot of things that are waiting to be decided by Parliament. And
I want to ask you this. Earlier you spoke about the three arms of government, but isn't this a fact about Malaysia's history that we've had executive dominance for decades? And isn't this consistent with that culture and practice of executive dominance?
Absolutely. And I think, but it doesn't mean you do that by crippling one arm of the government. There must be some accountability. I mean, there's a new stimulus package which hasn't been studied by parliamentarians. All these things provide for accountability. And honestly, in the last 2 years, we were seeing more accountability. We were seeing more parliamentary select committees who are being active. So unfortunately, we're losing all of that. And yes, this points to executive dominance, but that is exactly what we were trying to correct. Unfortunately.
You spoke about the courts providing some sort of remedy. Do we have a structure? Will the courts accept this? And could they intervene before the 18th of May?
No, I don't think I think it's too short a period of time. But I do think that the members of Parliament should try and move a motion. I'm not sure whether VK Liu is proceeding with his motion. He has one. I don't know whether he mentioned that, but perhaps they should, because at the end of the day, it is the House that makes some of these decisions, which the government has tried to make for them. And to me, that is something they need to resolve in the House, and they should at least try and resolve in the House.
Ambiga, thank you so much for speaking with us tonight. We really appreciate your time and for shedding some light onto this matter. Now, that's all the time we have for you tonight on this episode of Consider This. I'm Melisa, Idris, with me, Sharaad, Kuttan, signing off for the evening. Thank you so much for watching and good night.